In the heart of southern Africa, far from the bustling ports of Europe and Asia, a city of stone rises from the mist of history. Its walls soar nearly 30 feet high, meticulously stacked without mortar, forming labyrinthine passages and massive enclosures. For centuries, this city was the center of a thriving kingdom, controlling gold, ivory, and trade across continents. Yet today, it lies abandoned. No king rules here, no merchants haggle over gold. Only silence stretches across its ruined walls. This is Great Zimbabwe, a lost medieval kingdom whose rise and fall remain one of Africa's greatest mysteries. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, Great Zimbabwe stood as the crown jewel of a vast empire in southern Africa. At its peak, it controlled fertile lands, rich gold deposits, and trade networks that reached the Indian Ocean. Chinese porcelain, Persian glass beads, and Middle Eastern artifacts followed into the kingdom, evidence that it was part of a global economy long before European explorers arrived. Yet by the late 15th century, Great Zimbabwe was abandoned. Its stone walls crumbled, its bustling streets emptied, and the people who built this incredible civilization vanished. How could a kingdom so prosperous disappear without a trace? What is it that had led to the decline of one of Africa's most impressive medieval states? The origins of Great Zimbabwe trace back to around 1100 CE, when the Bantu-speaking Shona people settled in the fertile highlands of present-day Zimbabwe. These early settlers brought with them the knowledge of ironworking, farming, and cattle herding. These were the skills that allowed them to thrive in a challenging environment. Over generations, small villages grew into a centralized kingdom, and at its center rose the monumental city of Great Zimbabwe. The city's architecture is remarkable. Unlike European castles or Asian fortresses, which relied on mortar, Great Zimbabwe's builders carved massive granite stones and stacked them with precision, creating walls that have withstood centuries of weather and time. The Great Enclosure, the city's most famous structure, is a circular wall stretching over 250 meters in circumference and standing nearly 11 meters tall. Within its curves, narrow passages twist and turn, echoing the complexity of the kingdom's political and social systems. This was not merely a city of walls. It was a city of wealth and influence. Great Zimbabwe's rulers controlled trade routes that funneled gold from nearby mines to the coast, where merchants shipped it across the Indian Ocean. Archaeologists have discovered fragments of Chinese Ming porcelain, coins from the Middle East, and glass beads from India. These artifacts reveal that Great Zimbabwe was connected to the global trade network centuries before European colonization, rivaling cities in the Middle East, Asia, and even Europe in wealth and sophistication. The kingdom was also a social and political marvel. Kings ruled from the stone heart of the city, surrounded by advisors, priests, and soldiers. Commoners lived in thatched houses spread across the surrounding hills, tending livestock and farm that sustained the population. Estimates suggest that at its height, Great Zimbabwe housed between 15,000 and 20,000 people, which makes it a medieval metropolis deep in the African interior. But by the 15th century, the kingdom began to falter. Its once thriving streets emptied, trade networks shifted, and political power moved elsewhere. Within few decades, Great Zimbabwe was abandoned, leaving behind only stone walls as testimony to its former glory. For decades, historians and archaeologists have debated the reasons for its collapse. Some argue that overgrazing by cattle and deforestation led to environmental degradation. The land, stripped of trees and vegetation, could no longer sustain large populations, and crops failed. Others suggest that climate change, in the form of prolonged drought, made the highlands uninhabitable. Economic factors may have played a role as well. As trade routes shifted to other emerging centers, Great Zimbabwe lost its access to wealth and goods from overseas. Political instability, possibly due to internal rivalries or succession disputes, may have accelerated the kingdom's decline. The combination of environmental strain, economic disruption, and social unrest may have created a perfect storm, leaving the city empty and vulnerable. After the abandonment of Great Zimbabwe, power gradually shifted north to other centers such as Kami and the Mutapa Empire, which inherited much of Great Zimbabwe's culture, adding to the inheritance the trade networks and political structures. These new states continued to engage in trade across the Indian Ocean, exporting gold, ivory, and other resources while importing exotic goods from as far away as China and the Middle East. Even as the ruins of Great Zimbabwe stood silent, local oral traditions preserved the memory of its kings and warriors. The Shona people remembered the city as a place of ancestors and spirits, linking the stone walls to stories of power, wisdom, and divine authority. The city became more than a physical structure. The city became a symbol of cultural identity. It became a testament to African ingenuity and resilience. When European explorers arrived in the 19th century, they were stunned. They could not believe that a city of such scale and sophistication could have been built by Africans. Theories ranged from the plausible to the absurd. Some claimed that Phoenicians or Arabs had constructed it. Others insisted it was the work of the lost tribes of Israel. Colonial powers kept repeatedly ignoring the evidence pointing to the Shona as the architects of Great Zimbabwe, revealing the deep-seated racial prejudices of the time. It was not until the 20th century that archaeologists finally acknowledged the truth. Great Zimbabwe was an entirely African creation. Excavations confirmed the city's Shona origins, and researchers recognized its sophisticated social, political, and economic systems. This realization shifted the narrative of African history, challenging centuries of Eurocentric assumptions. Today, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe stand as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing scholars, tourists, and history enthusiasts from around the world. Walking among its massive stone walls, visitors can almost hear the echoes of the past, the footsteps of kings, the chatter of merchants, and the clatter of gold being weighed and traded. The city's architecture continues to inspire awe, a reminder that Africa has always been home to powerful civilizations, capable of shaping global history. Yet, the greatest mystery endures. Why did Great Zimbabwe fall? Was it an environmental collapse? Or was it political turmoil? Perhaps an economic decline? Or perhaps a combination of all the above? Perhaps we will never know for certain. However, what remains undeniable is the kingdom's enduring legacy. A civilization that rose from the African soil, reached extraordinary heights, and left behind a testament in stone that continues to captivate the imagination of the world. Great Zimbabwe is more than a ruin. It is a monument to African ingenuity, resilience, and historical significance. Its walls tell a story of kings and traders. It tells the story of wealth and power, a story of a civilization that thrived long before colonial narratives sought to erase it. The rise and fall of Great Zimbabwe remind us that history is not only written in words, but also carved into the very landscape where people lived, labored, and dreamt. As we walk among the stones today, we are reminded that Africa's history is rich and full of civilizations that shaped the world in ways often overlooked. Great Zimbabwe stands as proof African kingdoms were not passive participants in history. They were creators, innovators, and rulers in their own right. History hides countless mysteries waiting to be rediscovered. Great Zimbabwe is only the beginning. Subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell to keep up with our videos.